and the chance for a random alignment of the two directions of 9 degrees or so is 0.6%. So the question arises whether this wow signal from 1977 was transmitted by 3I Atlas. We don't know, and there was no report on radio observations of 3I Atlas so far.
An astronomer just claimed that scientists are hiding the real truth about 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object ever to enter our solar system. But what exactly did they find that sparked talk of a cover-up? In this video, we would uncover the secrets NASA won't explain and the evidence they can't erase. Let's get into it. The object that shouldn't exist. When the first light hit the detectors of the Atlas Observatory in Chile on July 1, 2025, astronomers knew they were looking at something extraordinary. The faint blur they detected wasn't behaving like any ordinary asteroid or comet. It was racing through the solar system at 137,000 miles per hour on a hyperbolic path that would take it right through the inner system and out again forever. Within hours, the data began to confirm what many suspected. This wasn't a visitor from our neighborhood. It was from the stars themselves, the third confirmed interstellar object ever found, formerly named 3I Atlas. In the days that followed, telescopes across the planet swung toward the new arrival. Hubble caught a faint blue blur enveloped by gas and dust. JWST saw the unmistakable signs of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and dust outgassing. Ground-based instruments in Chile and the Canary Islands added their own observations, all confirming a picture of a natural, active comet older than the solar system itself, born in the thick disk of the Milky Way and wandering for billions of years before finding its way here. Yet, by the end of that same week, 3I Atlas was no longer just an astronomical marvel. It had become the centerpiece of a swelling online storm, a story of alleged suppression, scientific arrogance, and even an alien cover-up. The controversy began, as these things often do, with a name that had already become polarizing in modern astronomy: Avi Loeb. Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist once respected for his early work on black holes and cosmic structures, had long straddled the line between scientific innovation and sensationalism. His 2017 claim that the first interstellar object, Oumuamua, might have been an alien probe had turned him into both a celebrity and a target of ridicule among peers. So when 3I Atlas appeared, Loeb wasted no time. On July 16, 2025, he uploaded a non-peer-reviewed preprint suggesting the comet could once again be possibly artificial, maybe even hostile.
And yeah, you might have guessed who this is coming from. The now somewhat controversial Israeli scientist, Avi Loeb, and specifically address some of the Avi Loeb's claims, mostly dissecting why, based on the scientific data, none of the claims he makes seem to hold up.
The timing couldn't have been worse, or better, depending on your perspective. The comet's approach coincided with renewed online fascination over UFOs, space defense programs, and whispers of alien black swan contingencies. The internet lit up with hashtags like Atlas Probe and NASA Cover-Up. Threads spread across Reddit and X, claiming NASA and ESA were silencing data that proved the comet was emitting light or maintaining a controlled trajectory. Even mainstream outlets joined the frenzy when Elizabeth Vargas Reports hosted Loeb live. Calm and self-assured, he argued that the object's mass and trajectory didn't make sense for a natural body, emphasizing that there wasn't enough rocky material in interstellar space to deliver an object of that size randomly to our system.
There is also not enough rocky material in interstellar space to deliver such a giant rock into the inner solar system over the past decade. Even if you package all of it in objects of this size or bigger, then there is just not enough number of objects to deliver them at random once per decade to the inner solar system.
The suggestion was clear. 3I Atlas might not be random at all, but inside the astronomical community, the reaction was swift and scathing. To most scientists, Loeb's claims were déjà vu. In 2017, he had argued that Oumuamua's acceleration could only be explained by alien technology, an idea later disproven by outgassing models and statistical mechanics. Now, he was making the same leap with even less evidence. As the controversy deepened, professional astronomers moved to reassert what the data actually showed. According to NASA, ESA, and numerous independent observatories, 3I Atlas behaving exactly like a comet. It had a coma composed of CO2 and H2O. Its tail orientation matched solar radiation pressure. There was no measurable non-gravitational acceleration, no sign of propulsion or course correction.
Observations from several telescopes, including Gemini South a NASA infrared telescope facility, definitively showed us that the coma of this object is made out of at least water ice and potentially silicate grains.
What made 3I Atlas unusual, and likely the reason for the misunderstanding, were its extremes. The comet's CO2-H2O ratio was the highest ever recorded, nearly 8 times the normal range. Its negative polarization, a measure of how its dust scatters light, was more intense than any comet observed before, suggesting large, porous grains mixed with carbon-rich material. And its nickel-to-iron ratio was completely lopsided, with nickel detected in abundance but no iron at all. For astrophysicists, these weren't signs of artifice, they were signatures of deep space chemistry. As 3I Atlas drifted through interstellar radiation for billions of years, cosmic rays had likely cooked its surface into something unlike any comet from our solar system. In short, it was alien only in the most literal sense. It came from elsewhere. Still, the gap between science and speculation widened. On social media, one post in particular would ignite a new wave of paranoia, an alleged ESA leak shared anonymously on 4chan. The post, written in technical jargon, claimed to come from a PhD researcher inside the European Space Agency and described 3I Atlas as a cubole, a supposed quantum relic of the Big Bang with manufactured dust and synthetic nickel compounds. It accused agency officials of a cover-up, saying data showing physics violations, massive outgassing without recoil, and no thermal heating despite gigawatts of absorption were being buried. None of these details matched any verified observation, yet the language, precise enough to sound scientific, gave the post viral credibility. YouTube creators, fringe science blogs, and conspiratorial accounts on X began claiming this was the smoking gun that NASA and ESA were hiding. Within days, a mashup clip of Loeb's TV interview, distorted NASA footage, and AI-generated images of cylindrical craft near Mars had racked up over 6 million views, but the real data told a very different story. Every major observatory, from JWST to VLT, Gemini South, and Hubble, reported consistent findings. The object's nucleus measured roughly 5 km across. Its rotation period was around 16 hours. The coma's composition included CO2, CO, H2O, OCS, and trace cyanide gas, all typical for cold, carbon-rich comets. And crucially, its trajectory was not anomalously aligned with the ecliptic.
Here, Avi Loeb suggests that the close approach to Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, combined with the alignment to the ecliptic plane, seems to be anomalous and could indicate a guided artificial trajectory. Its trajectory is actually tilted 175 degrees with respect to the ecliptic. And so the more correct description here would be retrograde and inclined by 5 degrees.
This was not a guided craft weaving between planets. It was an interstellar rock taking a gravitational joyride through the sun's domain. Still, public fascination was undeniable. Even Joe Rogan, on his podcast, fanned the flames.
There's this guy, Avi Loeb, he's a professor at Harvard, that believes it might be an alien probe. And it's so it makes it difficult to detect, and that this object is in a direct line to come to Earth in 2027.
In reality, the comet's closest approach to Earth will be 1.8 astronomical units, nearly 270 million kilometers away, and that will happen in December 2025, not 2027. The effect, however, was immediate. By late August 2025, searches for 3I Atlas alien probe were trending worldwide. Influencers posted reaction videos claiming NASA's lying again, while astrophysicists scrambled to calm the narrative. Harvard's own colleagues publicly distanced themselves from Loeb's statements, calling them pedagogical exercises taken too far. To the scientific eye, the entire phenomenon reflected a deeper crisis, not of astronomy, but of trust. The comet itself was a mirror. On one side stood the evidence, spectroscopy, imaging, and decades of cometary science. On the other, a world hungry for mystery, where not knowing was seen as proof of deception. Yet the most ironic part of this saga is that Loeb himself has repeatedly admitted that a natural origin remains most probable. In his paper's conclusion, he wrote that, while low probability events cannot be ruled out, the simplest explanation remains a natural ejection from another star system. In other words, the very man accused of uncovering a cover-up had already conceded the opposite. So how did we reach a point where even that nuance vanished under the noise? Part of the answer lies in how science communicates uncertainty. In the rush to publish, headlines flatten hypotheses into declarations. Could be alien tech becomes Harvard scientist says comet is alien. Combine that with social media echo chambers, algorithmic amplification, and a collective distrust of institutions, and a comet can quickly become a conspiracy. But while the debates raged online, the actual research continued. By early September, JWST and SphereX had captured detailed spectra of 3I Atlas, revealing that its coma extended nearly 348,000 kilometers, about the distance from the Earth to the Moon, and that its gas venting rates reached 1.7 x 10^27 molecules per second of carbon dioxide. Those numbers stunned even seasoned comet scientists, but far from violating physics, they confirmed that 3I Atlas was a super-volatile comet, its outer shell packed with ices forged in a frigid, ancient stellar nursery. The more we learned, the clearer the pattern became. The anomalies weren't evidence of engineering, they were fingerprints of age. The comet's high nickel content, for example, came from nickel tetracarbonyl compounds, molecules that form in low-temperature, carbon-rich environments. Its negative polarization arose from radiation-darkened dust, similar to that found on trans-Neptunian objects. And its slow, 16-hour rotation, once cited by conspiracy theorists as proof of stabilized motion, was perfectly consistent with a dense, irregular nucleus tumbling through sunlight. In the grand sweep of cosmic history, 3I Atlas wasn't the harbinger of an alien invasion, it was a messenger, a lump of frozen chemistry carrying the memory of other suns. Yet the question of why people still believed otherwise would become the next chapter in this strange story. As Loeb continued to appear on talk shows, doubling down on black swan possibilities, his critics grew louder. Astrophysicist Anton Petrov, whose analysis videos reach millions, released an entire breakdown dismantling Loeb's arguments point by point.
Pretty much nothing anomalous here at all. Which brings us to that main question. So, why does Avi Loeb continuously push these narratives, even in face of obvious contradictory evidence? Why, Avi? Why? Well, as many of his colleagues pointed out, since 2017, Avi Loeb essentially gained all of his reputation by making these extraordinary claims.
By late September, the narrative around 3I Atlas had split in two. The scientific world saw a once-in-a-generation opportunity to study the oldest comet ever found. The online world saw a cover-up unraveling before their eyes. And as 3I Atlas moved closer to its October 30th perihelion, those two realities were about to collide. Not in the sky, but in the court of public opinion. Because for every paper published, there would be another viral clip claiming NASA edited its images. For every data release, another thread alleging hidden gamma-ray bursts. And for every scientist pleading for patience, another headline asking if this was the alien probe the government didn't want you to know about. What began as a story about a comet was becoming something else, a reflection of how easily truth in the modern age burns up like dust in the solar wind, when the data met the drama. By mid-October 2025, the comet had crossed the orbit of Mars. In that part of space in 1977, its current velocity and orbit make it impossible. The object hadn't even entered the solar system yet, but the allure of connecting a modern mystery to a historical enigma was irresistible. Within hours of the clip airing, WOW signal trended across X and TikTok. Users merged spectrograms with comet images, claiming they matched perfectly. Even mainstream tabloids ran with headlines like "Harvard professor links alien message to incoming space visitor." The more the scientists clarified, the louder the conspiracy became. In reality, as Loeb himself admitted in a later blog post, there had been no radio observations of 3I Atlas at all. His statement was an invitation for astronomers to look, not a declaration that they'd found anything.
I realized that back on August 15th, 1977, there was a very famous flare in the radio signal that was given the name the WOW signal because the observers that recorded it at Ohio State University was stunned at how powerful this signal was.
But nuance is fragile in an attention economy. Once the story left the lab, it belonged to the algorithms. Meanwhile, real astronomers were working around the clock to turn myth back into measurement. From October 3rd to 5th, multiple spacecraft orbiting Mars, including Mars Express, MRO, and even the Perseverance rover, captured the comet during its close flyby. The data was stunning. The nucleus remained intact. No propulsion signatures, no heat anomalies, just a cold, dusty body venting CO2 and H2O exactly as expected. To the scientific community, it was confirmation. To conspiracy forums, it was proof of censorship. When ESA released a set of grayscale calibration images, commenters accused them of pixelating the alien structure. Some posts even claimed that NASA was photoshopping the coma to hide identified glowing patterns. But what those patterns really were, explained clearly in the metadata, were exposure trails from background stars. By now, the discussion had left the realm of evidence entirely. One viral 4chan thread re-emerged, the so-called ESA PhD leak, claiming the agency had suppressed gamma-ray data from the comet. The post used elaborate scientific vocabulary, synthetic nickel tetracarbonyl, quantum cuboles, dark matter solitons. None of it existed in any official dataset, but it spread like wildfire. Even Loeb's own team had to publicly clarify that they had no involvement with those claims. For astronomers inside NASA and ESA, it was déjà vu all over again. They had lived through Oumuamua's media circus in 2017, when an innocent light curve anomaly spiraled into alien headlines. Now, with 3I Atlas, history was repeating itself, only faster and amplified by AI-generated imagery. What the data actually showed, however, was far more fascinating than any cover-up. JWST's September spectral readings detected a CO2-dominated coma with an extraordinary CO2-H2O ratio 8, something never before seen. The comet's nickel-rich but iron-poor composition and the extreme negative polarization of 2.77% pointed toward a chemical story billions of years in the making, a fragment of a world forged in the Milky Way's thick disk long before the sun was born. In essence, 3I Atlas was a time capsule. Its composition preserved the conditions of an ancient carbon-heavy nebula that once circled another star. Over eons, that system collapsed, scattered its debris, and one tiny remnant eventually drifted across interstellar space until gravity brought it here. But that scientific poetry was getting drowned out by something far more chaotic: the digital megaphone of misinformation. Even as NASA posted official updates describing the comet as a natural object exhibiting ordinary but instructive behavior, those statements were being outperformed by sensational thumbnails. One popular TikTok claimed the object was slowing down deliberately. Another insisted the reddish coma was plasma shielding. In reality, the color shift from red to green was due to diatomic carbon fluorescence, the same process that gives comets their emerald hue as sunlight excites carbon molecules. By the time the JWST post-processing team released their peer-reviewed results in early October, confirming the presence of volatile ices and no artificial signatures, the online narrative had already hardened. For some audiences, any official statement was now suspect by default. And yet, a quiet resilience emerged among scientists determined to educate rather than argue. YouTube astrophysicist Anton Petrov released a 17-minute breakdown dismantling each of Loeb's points with data and patience.
Pretty much nothing anomalous here at all. And so the only real anomaly about this object is the fact that it seems to be coming from the really ancient part of the Milky Way, with the suggested age for this comet potentially now being over 9 billion years old.
His message was simple: the wonder of 3I Atlas doesn't need aliens to be extraordinary. Still, the entertainment world thrived on the opposite. Late-night shows joked about Harvard's alien guy. Podcasts debated whether governments might be tracking the comet secretly. Even Randall Carlson, host of Squaring the Circle, devoted a 2-hour special to comet origins, asking if ancient myths could be linked to interstellar visitors. Though the episode itself stayed grounded in education, excerpts taken out of context were quickly spliced into conspiracy edits. All of it fed into a broader cultural moment, one where scientific authority was being replaced by narrative authority. Inside observatories, the numbers kept coming in. By October 20th, Spherex measured the coma extending nearly 350,000 kilometers, the size of the Earth-Moon distance. VLT instruments confirmed cyanide gas, CN, appearing as the comet neared 3 AU from the Sun, exactly when expected for volatile sublimation. The object's rotation period, initially estimated at 29 hours, refined to 16 hours, with no stable orientation, the complete opposite of what a controlled craft would exhibit. At the same time, chemical models began explaining its anomalies. The nickel emissions that once puzzled astronomers were consistent with photon-stimulated desorption from organometallic compounds, molecules releasing nickel atoms when struck by sunlight. The apparent absence of iron wasn't a mystery, but a byproduct of its low metallicity formation environment in the galaxy's thick disk. Every data point reaffirmed the same conclusion: a natural interstellar comet. Yet, for those captivated by the drama, these explanations only deepened suspicion. If scientists had an answer for everything, they must be hiding something. That paradox, where evidence strengthens disbelief, became the true story of 3I Atlas. It wasn't about a comet defying physics. It was about a culture struggling with trust. In interviews, Loeb defended his approach as healthy skepticism. He argued that extraordinary claims deserve exploration, even if they prove false. But to many of his peers, it wasn't skepticism, it was spectacle.
Pretty much all of his recent papers never go any kind of a rigorous peer review, and though normally for a typical scientist you would usually try to correct your paper and possibly change your methodology just to make it, I guess, more scientific, for Avi Loeb, his approach is playing victim. With every single paper, he posts a blog post, making himself appear as a victim of scientific attack.
In truth, Loeb's career had shifted from equations to headlines. His earlier work on black holes and cosmology had been groundbreaking, his recent ventures into speculative extraterrestrial theories less so. But regardless of motive, his influence was undeniable. Few scientists could make the public care about interstellar comets at all, and for a fleeting moment, the attention was beneficial. Telescope time doubled. Amateur astronomers joined online collaborations. Kids searched Atlas Comet instead of celebrity gossip. The controversy had, unintentionally, revived interest in astronomy itself. Still, beneath the renewed wonder lurked something fragile. Every time a NASA statement contradicted a rumor, another insider leak surfaced to fill the void. Every clarification spawned a counter-theory. The cycle was self-perpetuating, and by the time 3I Atlas reached its perihelion on October 30th, it was no longer just a comet in the sky. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's relationship with truth. That night, as observatories from Chile to Hawaii tracked the glowing red-green haze hurtling past the sun at 68 kilometers s, one fact was beyond dispute. This object was ancient, older than Earth, older than the sun itself. Its story spanned billions of years, from a forgotten system in the thick disk of the Milky Way to its brief encounter with ours. And yet, online, the conversation was still about aliens. Some creators claimed the object dimmed suddenly, interpreting normal photometric variations as evidence of power loss. Others pointed to Mars Express thermal data, arguing that its low infrared signature implied energy shielding. In truth, the signal drop was just the comet rotating its darker hemisphere toward the instruments. By November 1st, the cover-up narrative had taken on a life of its own, a myth immune to correction. And still, Loeb's voice cut through the noise. In another interview, he warned that society should prepare for black swan events, low probability but high-impact anomalies.
Any intelligence agency knows that they need to make a contingency plan for black swan events that are rare, unlikely, but could make a huge difference. We should do the same for interstellar objects. Just be aware of the possibility that it could represent alien tech.
Even then, he stopped short of declaring certainty. Just be aware, he said, words that would once again be trimmed and looped into viral soundbites. Harvard scientist warns of alien tech. Meanwhile, the James Webb team quietly published the definitive paper. No radio signals, no anomalous acceleration, no artificial composition, only the unmistakable chemistry of carbon dioxide, water, and dust grains forged under foreign suns. In the end, 3I Atlas wasn't hiding secrets. It was revealing one, that sometimes our need for mystery outpaces our respect for truth. The truth beneath the tale. When 3I Atlas passed its perihelion on October 30th, 2025, it reached its brightest moment, glowing faintly green in the sun's reflection, 1.4 astronomical units from the star that had captured humanity's attention for months. For astronomers, it was the culmination of months of coordination, a planetary-scale effort involving Hubble, JWST, VLT, Gemini, Spherex, and orbiters around Mars and Jupiter. For the public, it was the night the alien comet reached the sun. But when nothing extraordinary happened, no flare, no pulse of radio waves, no alien fleet appearing from behind the corona, something even stranger occurred: silence. The same accounts that had predicted Earth contact or gamma bursts quietly deleted their posts. YouTube thumbnails that once screamed "NASA lied" were replaced with vague updates about data delays. The conversation didn't end because the mystery was solved. It ended because reality was less entertaining. Yet for scientists, this was when the real story began. Post-perihelion observations revealed something even more remarkable than any conspiracy theory. JWST confirmed that 3I Atlas was ejecting gas and dust at venting rates over 1.7 × 10⁻27 molecules per second of CO2, with CO2 dominating over water vapor nearly 8.1. That meant its core was made of the most volatile ices known, ices that could only survive in the coldest corners of space. The comet's nickel emissions, initially seen as suspicious, turned out to be an unprecedented example of organometallic chemistry in action, where nickel tetracarbonyl compounds were vaporizing under sunlight. Its negative polarization, twice as extreme as any known comet, hinted at porous dust created under long-term galactic radiation. To those who understood the data, 3I Atlas wasn't proof of deception. It was a gift from deep time. As one researcher put it in an ESA briefing, this is a 10 billion-year-old storyteller made of gas and memory. That poetic truth was drowned out, of course, by a new wave of online reinterpretations. The same polarization data was spun as proof of nanostructured hull plating. The nickel vapor became industrial byproduct. And when astronomers confirmed that the comet would make its next close pass to Jupiter in March 2026, conspiracy channels started predicting a Jovian event. By now, most scientists had stopped engaging. They had work to do. NASA's and ESA's analysis teams began cross-referencing 3I Atlas's spectral data with that of 2I Borisov and 1I Oumuamua. What they found was illuminating. Each interstellar visitor carried a unique chemical fingerprint shaped by the conditions of its birth system. Borisov had been rich in cyanides, suggesting a red dwarf origin. Oumuamua had been rocky and volatile poor, perhaps a fragment of a shattered planet. And 3I Atlas was something older still, a CO2-dominant, metal-poor relic from the Milky Way's thick disk, a fossil from an era before the sun. In other words, the universe had just handed us a time capsule. As data continued to pour in, the so-called cover-up narrative finally began to collapse under its own weight. Every supposed anomaly had a physical explanation, all of them extraordinary, none of them supernatural. By December, even some of Loeb's former defenders began to distance themselves. He had done what he always did, pose a provocative question, then let the internet twist it into dogma.
And so assuming that any of these objects are extraterrestrial probes or alien spacecraft is honestly just pure nonsense. This is definitely an incredible object and is definitely exciting for a lot of reasons, especially because it allows us to study pristine material from another star system. But here, all of the scientific evidence points at this being a natural cometary object.
For the astronomical community, 3I Atlas became a symbol, not of aliens or conspiracies, but of how fragile scientific truth can be in the modern age. The object had inspired more peer-reviewed papers in 3 months than some missions generate in a decade. It had reignited public fascination with deep space science, and it had forced scientists to rethink how they communicate uncertainty in an era allergic to nuance. NASA's own public engagement report following the event noted that viral misinformation outpaced verified data by a ratio of 9.1. The agency began exploring new ways to share raw observations directly with the public, live streaming telescope feeds, releasing preprints alongside layman summaries, and encouraging science communicators to fill the gaps before conspiracy theorists did. For Loeb, the episode marked both a triumph and a cautionary tale. His insistence on considering unconventional possibilities had made him a household name, but his repeated flirtation with sensationalism had alienated many colleagues. As one astrophysicist put it in a Nature editorial, speculation sells, but it also sets science on fire. By now, 3I Atlas had given the world something unexpected, not proof of aliens, but proof of how modern myth-making works. The formula was simple: mix legitimate science with uncertainty, add a headline, stir in distrust, and watch it spread. The tragedy was that behind the noise lay a discovery more profound than any fantasy. Because if 3I Atlas had indeed come from the galactic thick disk, as orbital simulations suggest, then this object was older than the solar system by billions of years. Its atoms had been forged in the deaths of the first stars, its surface bombarded by cosmic rays since before Earth's oceans existed. It wasn't a visitor from another civilization, it was a relic from another era of the galaxy itself. 3I Atlas wasn't an alien craft. It was a natural interstellar relic, sculpted by physics older than our sun. It taught us that CO2-based comets can exist beyond the traditional ice line, that nickel organic compounds can form without industrial processes, and that negative polarization can push the boundaries of known cometary optics. And maybe, more importantly, it revealed something about us, that we crave significance so deeply we'd rather invent aliens than accept insignificance. The scientists didn't cover up the truth, they just refused to make it louder than it was. When the comet finally left the inner solar system, passing the orbit of Jupiter in early 2026, a few Mars-based instruments still caught its fading tail, a faint, dying streak of light across the Martian sky. For a world obsessed with discovery, that image should have been enough, proof that the universe still has stories to tell, if we're willing to listen without shouting over them.
SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which is a legitimate and important scientific endeavor that entirely relies on extremely rigorous, objective, and scientific investigation of every single detection. And that's where Avi Loeb fails completely. instead of doing that, he ends up publishing a book and making money, which is why he lost most of the respect from the wider scientific community.
By the spring of 2026, the world had moved on. A new comet, a new theory, another wave of headlines. But for those who watched 3i Atlas through the eyepiece, it left a quiet, humbling imprint. It reminded humanity that not every mystery hides a message. Some simply exist, indifferent, ancient, beautiful, and that should be enough. If you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead and click on any of the cards on your screen for more.